Hi, this is Glenn Hughes, and you're listening to Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 280 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here. Jason's out this week. But I think I've got a good episode for you because Glenn Hughes, the voice of rock, is here on this podcast. That's something that I have been wanting to say since we started this podcast almost 5.5 years ago. So I'm extremely excited to bring that to you here in just a bit. Of course, I'm going to talk about some Glenn Hughes before that interview, play you some music as well, and try not to fanboy out too much. That's my goal, but that's not a promise that it will happen. So anyway, before we get into all that, of course, I need to let you know who helps pay the bills and support this podcast. Sunset Tattoo, based right here in our hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tattoo shop at 3146 East 15th Street, right in the heart of Midtown Tulsa. Give them a call or shoot them a message so you can set up a time to get in there and discuss what work you need to be, or what work you want done. They've got a Facebook page, Sunset Tattoo Tulsa, and Instagram at Sunset Tattoo Tulsa, where you can see all their work. There's a ton of great work they've done. They've got a lot of experience, over 25 years of experience. Their tattoos are done good and proper. They are, of course, state licensed, and more importantly than everything, they were mother approved. So get over to Sunset Tattoo and let them know that we sent you. Also, MedPharm is a dispensary located in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma at 24683 East Highway 51. They're right off the highway. Can't miss them if you're coming in from Tulsa. There's billboards on the way to help you get here. So get over there, and the coolest thing is that they've got a drive-thru, which I know a lot of dispensaries don't offer. So you can call ahead, text ahead, email ahead, place your order, and then just head right to the drive-thru and get in and out pretty quick. You can also check out their complete line of products on leafly.com. You can also go into the store. It's not closed out, so wear a mask and get in there. And if you tell them that Thunder Underground sent you, they'll give you 10% off your first order, which is very cool. They're always running other specials, so follow them on their social medias on Facebook and Instagram at MedPharmOK. Their website's medpharmok.com. And above all else, 30% of their proceeds are going to build no-kill animal shelters, which is a huge cause that is amazing. And that's the reason I think there's a dispensary, like we say, on every corner in this area now. There's literally a dispensary like going in like less than a quarter mile from MedPharm. But there's dispensaries everywhere. So I know that, it's more convenient to you to go to the one that's like 12 feet from your house rather than drive 10 or 15 minutes over here. But I'm telling you, nearly a third of their profits are going to build no-kill animal shelters, so it's completely worth that. So get over there and tell them we sent you and get your discount, and we appreciate MedPharm as always. Hell Hot Hot Sauce, our most recent sponsor, makes some great hot sauce. They are a husband and wife team based out of the San Francisco Bay Area. They make small batch artisan hot sauces. They do collaborations with some metal artists. They've got a sauce called Brain Jerk with Ghoul, and they've got a sauce called Florida Frank's Florida Heat with Florida Frank from Hatebreed. We got a hold of some of that, and it is excellent. It is extremely hot, and it is extremely good. So get on their Facebook and follow them at Hell Hot Hot Sauce, and then get on their website, hellhothotsauce.com, to check out all their products. They've got t-shirts as well. So show them some love and tell them that Thunder Underground sent you. Finally, DEB Concerts is a promoter based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They've brought a ton of great acts that we love on this podcast. We've had several of them as guests on this podcast throughout the years. Bands like Saxon, LA Guns, Junkyard, Warrant, Bisto Blanco, Winger, Striper, Dokken, Last in Line, Buck Cherry. A huge-ass long list. They also booked Poison, Tom Kiefer, and Sebastian Bach at the BOK Center this year, but of course that is postponed to next year. We'll let you know whenever news comes out on that. But in the meantime, here coming up soon on August 15th, Dead Metal Society with Rocket Science will be at the IDL Ballroom. And in October 23rd, LA Guns will be returning to the IDL Ballroom. You can get ticket info for both those at debconcerts.com. Follow them on Facebook and Twitter so you get totally up-to-date news. And of course, we bring it to you here every episode as well. So a huge thank you to DEB Concerts. All right. I'm going to play you some music here right out the gate. This is a relatively new song, came out here in the past month or two from a new band based here out of our hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma. This band is called Tenebris, and this song is called Patricker. Patricker from Tenebris. I'm actually not sure if I'm saying that song title right, so forgive me if I'm wrong, guys, but that's a brand new track from, like I said, Tenebris. They're based here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They've got an EP coming out here pretty soon with 3 or 4 songs on it, and that, as you heard, was instrumental, but their other song, they're not an instrumental band. The other songs will have vocals. But wanted to throw that your way because it's got on the drums an old friend of the podcast, Trevor Tree, who has been on this podcast before. And, we've mentioned many times throughout the years. So anyway, get on Facebook and follow him. That's Tenebros. Give him a like and let him know we sent you. All right, something I thought was kind of funny that just kind of popped up. It was actually yesterday, I think, whenever this came out, but Jamie Josta sent out a tweet where he said, here, let me pull this up and read it. He said, $50,000 donation to Metallica's All Within My Hands Foundation if they let Dee Snider, Kirk Windstein, Sebastian Bach, Rob Flynn, and myself and others write our own vocals over Lulu's instrumentals. It couldn't hurt. No diss to Lou Reed. I'm just brainstorming recording ideas while we aren't touring. That is kind of interesting, and I know that the consensus is most people don't care for Lulu, but, I mean, I listened to it one time after it came out, and so I can't really remember much, but I remember I didn't really care for it, but I didn't dislike it. I mean, I tried to listen to it for what it was, because most people that hate it or blow it off are looking at it like, oh, it's a Metallica album with Lou Reed, but it's really not. It was a Lou Reed album with Metallica, and it wasn't ever meant to be. I knew, going in that it's not going to sound like Metallica, so. But anyway, I have no problem with it. I mean, I think it's cool that Metallica did that. They're in a position they can do what they want, and they were able to record with an artist that they loved. But I don't know if you take that music and put these guys you mentioned, like Rob Flynn or Kirk Windstein or Jamie Josta or Dee Snider on them, if it's gonna come off right. I don't know. I love all those guys, but it just seems like to me that wouldn't necessarily sound as amazing as Jamie Josta might think it was, but I don't know. I would sure as hell listen to it because, like I said, I love all those guys and I love Metallica as well. So anyway, just thought that was kind of a interesting, tweet that came out there from Jamie Josta. So just wanted to pass that along to anyone listening that might not have heard that. So, all right, let's play another song. I'm going to play a song from Red Witch Johnny. We've played them in the past 2 or 3 times throughout the years. They had an excellent album come out in 2019. I know we played Cosmic Rain last year after that came out. But we're going to play a song right now called Gypsy Queen.
Shangri-La and the grave.
Gypsy Queen from Red Witch Johnny from their album Tales of the Electric Mistress. Check that album out. It's fantastic. All their stuff is, if you follow them on, however you listen to music. If you stream music, Spotify, iTunes, Google Music, all that stuff, or if you Bandcamp's a much better way to do that, I think, for these bands. But check out Red Witch Johnny wherever you do. They've got a couple albums out and some other singles as well. Great band out of this area. They're out of the Oklahoma area as well. So just wanted to give them another shout out because I thought they fit in well with the Glenn Hughes vibe and the old Deep Purple kind of stuff. So anyway, like I said, Red Witch Johnny, give him a follow and like, and of course tell him we sent you. All right, now the subject at hand is Glenn Hughes. Back when we started this podcast and we got on a few artists that were, established artists like guys from Battlecross and Warrant and Crowbar, Overkill, and all the early stuff we got. And we started realizing that, hey, we're building this up and we're able to get some good artists. We made out a list. We sat down one time and made a list of just kind of like our dream, of course, Jason's favorite band's Metallica, so a dream would be to have one of those guys on, which that's still kind of out of reach, I think, but and my favorite band's Guns N' Roses, and, I'd love to be able to have Duff or Slash on here. We had Dizzy Reed on here late last year, which was really cool. But we made out that list of the dream guest, and Glenn Hughes, of course, was on that list. And he was kind of on the list of guys we thought that might be out of reach for a while, but maybe eventually we'll get there, and here we are 5 years later, so. He's got... I assume most people listening to this probably know what Glenn Hughes has been up to, but if for some reason you haven't, the guy has been pretty prolific through, not just throughout his career, but especially over the past decade, last 10 to 15 years. He's had several albums with Black Country Communion, which everybody knows, and those are all fantastic. Really looking forward to the next one, which I believe I saw a news story from an interview with either him or Joe Bonamassa, or it might have been talked about on that. Joe Bonamassa actually had Glenn Hughes on his podcast recently, so it's probably where it came from. But they said that Black Country Communion, a new album, wouldn't be before next year, so hopefully that is a thing that he comes out next year. But, anyway, he had California Breed like 6 or 8 years ago. Another fantastic album that, if you haven't heard, you need to hear. His most recent solo album was 2016. Resonate is fantastic. This guy has a lot of solo albums throughout the years. And, of course, everybody knows the early stuff with Trapeze and Deep Purple. He did Hughes Thrall. And then, of course, he was in Black Sabbath for one album, Seventh Star, which that's kind of like the album that a lot of people blow off because it wasn't supposed to, it was intended to be Tony Iommi's solo album, and the record label said this has to be a Black Sabbath album, because they're hoping, they figured that would push sales better than just saying Tony Iommi. But regardless, it's not your typical, like, what people know when they think of Sabbath with Ozzy or Dio, music-wise at least, I still love the album, and I know that the tour, has been well documented that it didn't go well, but, we've still got that music from that album that's great, and that was 1986, and then in 1996, they recorded the Depth Sessions, which actually didn't come out until several years later, and then in 2005, they put out Fused. Both of those albums were under Tony Iommi's name. Well, I believe it's Tony Iommi with Glenn Hughes is how it was billed. Both those albums are fantastic. I mentioned that here in the interview that his work with Tony Iommi is just unbelievable. And I was kind of like, several years ago, I thought, well, we got one in 86. We got something recorded in 96, and in 2005, that was roughly every 10 years. So then maybe 2015 or 2016, we might get one again. But of course, that's around the time when Black Sabbath was doing the End tour. Of course, Glenn Hughes has, like I said, all this stuff going on. But, hopefully we'll get something down the line before it's too late, while we can still get some music out of these legendary artists that are getting up there in age. But like I said up front, the voice of rock, Glenn Hughes, is one of the greatest rock singers of all time. I mean, that's my opinion, but I don't think that's something that most people would argue. If I had to make my Mount Rushmore of vocalists, he would definitely be one of the 4 guys on there. This is a huge highlight for me, and I'm really excited to check this one back out. So let's get right into it. I didn't even mention beforehand, as you know, as you're listening to this, Glenn Hughes is now in the Dead Daisies. I was kind of leading into that, and I forgot to mention it, but they've released a couple singles, and then they released the Lockdown Sessions, which was an EP that just came out a couple weeks ago with those singles acoustic, and they also did an acoustic version of 30 Days in a Hole and an acoustic version of Fortunate Son. So something to kind of hold us over until we get the full album coming up in January. So now we talk a lot about Dead Daisies here coming up, so let's just jump right into it. Here is Glenn Hughes. You guys released the Lockdown Sessions a couple weeks ago. Like, how did you guys record that? Was it recorded remotely from each other and then pieced together, or did you guys record it live remotely, or how did you do that process?
We did it separately, and when we didn't know how long this was going to last, did we? So we did Unspoken. I guess maybe it was April or something like that, and then we sort of, in May, I think we did another one, and we just did 3 or 4, as you know. And yeah, it was all done separately, and we flew all the stuff in onto our computers, and we had to edit. Someone edited it all in London.
Like, as far as like working it, working it into an acoustic version, did like Doug and David handle that, and then you do your vocals and bass lines, or how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it was done. Unspoken was started off at my house, alone, because I played the guitar on that one as well. And then Doug and I spoke over the phone, over Skype and Zoom, about how we would proceed to do the other songs. And it just, like everyone else has been doing, we just wanted to keep in touch with everybody via Skype and Zoom for these lockdown sessions. Right.
Well, with you guys having to delay Holy Ground until January, how much of the album did you guys have completed before all this pandemic hit?
Oh, my God. We recorded the album in November, December in France, in a chateau last year. Okay. And we came home for Christmas, and then we went into a studio in North Hollywood and mixed it. And, the album was supposed to come out in May. And, of course, things changed for everyone. So we decided the best way to release it was tentatively when we could go out on the road to play this album for the fans.
Okay.
Which, of course, is going to, fingers crossed, which will be next year.
Right. Well, is Unspoken and Righteous Days both on the album, or are those standalone tracks?
No, they're the first 2 songs that we recorded.
Okay.
Actually, we recorded those in Hollywood last August at Sunset Sound. We did those 2 songs before we went to France. So many songs were written for this Holy Ground album, and long may that continue.
But do you guys plan to release any more singles before January, or are you going to kind of just go with the Lockdown Sessions for now?
I don't know. I believe we will. I'm not sure about that. Whatever's going to happen will happen soon, I guess.
Going back to when you joined the Dead Daisies, who was it that approached you? Was it Doug with your experience working with him, or was it David, or how did that come together?
Funny enough, it was the management who contacted me from Sydney, Australia. I met somebody at the NAMM show 2019 in LA in January that said that they were trying to get a hold of me. So I knew something was going on. I didn't know what they wanted or how they wanted to proceed, but I met with Davey Lowery, the guitar player, lovely fellow. He came from New York to LA to meet me for lunch. This would have been early March or early April of last year, and we had a discussion about the changing of the guard. John and Marco were leaving the band, and they wanted someone to come in. There was a songwriter, and they could sing and play, and they came to me, and we figured it.
The Dead Daisies being an established band, what do you think the addition of you on vocals and bass brings to the band that might change the direction or the sound or anything?
For me, they primarily wanted songs. They wanted to not stay. They wanted to. I think, and you can ask them this, but they were more of an 80s sounding band, and I am, as you know, from a 70s guy from my work in Deep Purple and Trapeze. So they wanted to take a look at more of a retro vibe from that. But I actually am that guy because I lived in that genre in the decade of the 70s. So for me to write that material is second nature because it's who I am.
Right. Having, you've worked with Doug in the past. How do you feel the chemistry with Dean and David was coming in?
Great. We, to let you know, I finished my USA touring schedule in Michigan last May the 3rd or something. And David flew out on his jet to see me play in Michigan. And he flew me back to New York with him to join Doug and Dean, who had flown in from LA. And we rehearsed in SAR for a couple of days. That's when we figured out this was going to work.
Did you guys discuss the live shows at this point already, or was that something that hadn't been worked out yet?
No, we were only primarily interested in new material. As you know, with any band, this is well before the virus. Any band that's going to make a record is going to go tour, and the Dead Daisies can tour globally. So they were really interested in the new songs that I was going to bring in to play for the band, and that was the primary purpose.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of curious, like if you guys would stick mainly to the new album, or if you would pull in some of those songs that John had sang, or how you were going to approach that.
I think, in my opinion, the way forward for the Dead Daisies is to play a few songs from the Dead Daisies Mark II, if you will, and primarily play a lot of Holy Ground. This is a new band and a new genre and a new generation of music, written in a style that the classic rock fans like, So, but we wanted to make sure that we were in a place where the Dead Daisies fans would understand it. And so far, it's going really, really well. So, I think when they hear the album, they'll understand that we did a lot of hard work here. I love John and Marco. They're very dear friends of mine. And I'm really happy to be in the band.
Do you think it's something where you guys would bring in Deep Purple or Trapeze or anything like that as well? Or maybe, Journey with Dean singing?
I think, I say again, this is only a tentative answer to your question. There's talk about doing, one or two Purple songs that I recorded, big tracks, which they have been doing Highway Star for quite some time. So there's a possibility of doing that one and Burn, maybe, because they're such huge songs that, I recorded, and it's part of again, it's classic rock. And if you're going to be in a band and you have someone in the band that was part of that genre, you probably want to do that. So it'll be great.
Well, when you're writing for Dead Daisies, like when you compare that to something like Black Country Communion or California Breed or your solo work, like do you approach it all the same, or do you approach it different based off of who you're playing with?
It's a little bit different. Again, the music you just mentioned with California Breed and Black Country Community, it's very classic rock, designed for that genre. With the Daisies, knowing who's in the band and what they do and how they do it, and important to the fan base is are they going to dig this? So I made sure, if you will, in my studio that I was bringing stuff in that would feel it was part of the band. I wanted it to be seamless, and that's the whole idea is making records that hopefully people can see a growth in the songs, and they can see that I've come in to do the business.
Right. Are you the primary songwriter now on Holy Ground?
Primarily, most of the songs are mine, written for Doug and David and Dean. So I did bring a lot of material in. So that's where we went from there. And then, of course, everybody gets to experiment on their own parts and stuff. But I did get to bring a lot of material with me.
Speaking of like solo work, it's been a few years since your last album, and with everything kind of in a shutdown, is that something else you've thought about working on this year?
Trent, I'm not sure if I want to do another solo record right now. I'm so busy with Dead Daisies. As you know, it's a band that is constant stuff going on, and even with the lockdown, we're doing these videos and blah blah blah. There's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of pre-production, a lot of new songs I'm writing at the moment. With the solo album for me right now, I don't have the time to do that. And let's be clear, right now it's difficult to talk about doing any more records, I think, so I have songs, of course, but as you know, I'm writing at the moment, so all I'm doing is staying in my studio, keeping busy.
Well, when you're constantly writing like that, is it always, like now is your headspace, is it always for the Dead Daisies, or are you just writing music and then kind of doing with it whichever way you think it should go?
Primarily, I'm just working on songs that are for the band.
Gotcha.
We have a lot more. There's a lot of work to do here. I mean, they've never really put their stop to put up the gas, and they want to continue, doing as much work. Again, we're tentatively thinking about, what can we do? We've got, as you may know, we've got things booked for next year, as most artists have got things booked for next year. So all we're praying and hoping for, the vaccine will be available so we can all travel.
You mentioned being busy, during this pandemic and all that stuff, like outside of, working with the Dead Daisies, how have you been spending your time on a personal level, like being at home so much?
I live at the beach, and it's, thank God I live in a place that's kind of isolated, and I get to, I'm a bit of a cardio guy. I like to do a lot of walking, and I like to read a lot of books. I've kept myself very, very busy, but I must tell you, I have been writing a lot of new songs, and that, the way for me to be happy, seriously now, I have a great family, and I love my animals and my missus and blah, blah, blah. I see Doug a lot now. But music is the healer for me. It keeps me completely centered, and in this moment, it thrives me. It gives me so much love for the planet to make songs that people will get to hear.
Like having that feeling and having been doing this for decades, do you feel like this is, you'll be writing music up until your final day?
I will.
Yeah.
People ask me that question, not all the time, but I do ask that question. A good friend of mine, who I won't say who it is, but we had a conversation about retirement. And I know a lot of people older than me that are still going, Jagger and Robert Plant, friends of mine, and they're still going, and because they love music, it's like, if you are a musician who's a songwriter and you just continue to write, and that's what I do. I've been doing it for 50 years, but more so since I've been sober. In the last 28 years, I've been writing more proper songs, about recovery. And in fact, I don't know if you know, but most of my work deals with the human condition and about pretty much the load factor and recovery and being free. And that's where I'm at.
I know this isn't something that's in the works or even a thing, but I'm just a big fan of all your work that you've done with Tony Iommi. And I was just wondering if that's something that's ever been talked about, of doing something again in the future.
Tony, it's really good. Geese is one of my best. Geese lives right next to me here, but I speak to Tony once in a while, and we have a bit of a chuckle because every time we speak, we talk about doing some more work. And all I can say is I know Tony's doing riffs at the moment back home. He's got his studio there, and I've done 3 albums with Tony, and I've done Fused, I've done Depth sessions and 7 Stars. So with Tony and I, it can happen overnight. It just happens really quickly. So all I know about him is that all I care about is his health, his great relationship with his wife and daughter, and he's happy and he's healthy. But it wouldn't surprise me if Tony and I did something else. Is it on the cards at the moment? Not today, which you never know.
Right. Like you mentioned, 50 years of doing this. If you had to pick one album from your entire career that you feel best displays who Glenn Hughes is, could you do that?
Yeah, and it's a song, it's an album your mother and father would love, because Trapeze were really big in Oklahoma and Texas in the early 70s, before I joined Deep Purple. My biggest interest in my whole musical career, now I've had a lot of success with Purple and with Iommi, as you know. My biggest achievement as an 18-year-old boy was coming to America and playing to clubs, and then eventually moving into theaters and arenas, and that would be in the South. And the albums were Medusa and You Are the Music were just about those 2 albums for me are my pride and joy, because they were made before success, and those albums garnished some acclaim from me as a writer. And Mel and Dave, who are my partners in the band, we loved each other so much. So the greatest achievement for me was...
That's great. Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Of course. You're welcome, Trent. Have a good day.
There you go, Glenn Hughes of the Dead Daisies and Black Country Communion. And, of course, formerly Deep Purple, Trapeze, California Breed. The list goes on. A huge thank you to Kat from Catalyst PR. And a huge thank you to Glenn Hughes for taking some time out there to talk to me about everything he's got going on with the Dead Daisies and Tony Iommi and a few other things. Very happy to be able to do that. Like I said up front, you all know he's one of the best singers of all time. Very happy to be able to do this. So if this is your first time checking us out, really appreciate it. As you can tell, 280, so we've got 279 previous episodes you could dig through. We've had on guys from Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, Shinedown, Thin Lizzy. We've had on Bruce Kulick, who, of course, was in Kiss and now in Grand Funk Railroad. We had on Gene Simmons from Kiss. A few guys from Megadeth, including Dave Ellefson, who has a album I'm really looking forward to coming out here pretty soon, I think in the next couple months. A covers album with Tom Hazard, who worked with him on his previous solo album. So we're looking forward to hearing that. But yeah, and then we've had on, Alex Skolnick from Testament recently, James Lomenzo, who's with John Fogerty now, of course, formerly with Black Label Society, Megadeth, White Lion, Pride and Glory. And we've had on guys from a lot of the, 80s glam, whatever you want to call it, melodic era, Warrant, Trickster, Firehouse, Tesla, Junkyard, LA Guns, Dokken, Lillian Axe, Great White. Also had on guys from, heavy stuff like Crowbar, Superjoint, Corrosion of Conformity, Prong, White Zombie, The list is extremely long, so just dig through there. SoundCloud.com/Thunder-Underground. You can listen to us on iTunes. Google Music. You can listen to us on Spotify now. And TuneIn and all those other places. So get on thethunderunderground.com. You can listen there as well. You can also find all our socials, so like us or follow us, whatever that particular social allows. And if you share things or like them or whatever, that helps us out greatly because it gets stuff spread around for other people to see. You can also follow us and subscribe to us on YouTube at The Thunder Underground. We've got a lot of videos that are separate from this podcast, so you can dig through there as well. And yeah, I think that covers it for another episode. Like I said, the voice of rock has now been on this episode, so I can say that we finally accomplished everything that was meant to be. Maybe not, I don't know. But once again, a huge thank you to Glenn Hughes. And of course, thank you to our sponsors, Hell Hot Hot Sauce, Med Farm, Sunset Tattoo, and DEB Concerts. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.